Interesting point. One thing I heard I don't remember which interview it was about a reason to use an under mic is just to get rid of some of that hi hat. Like it's hard
Oh,
it's
yeah.
or rather it's hard to get the high end of the snare back from the top mic because of the hi hat.
Yeah,
So
that does make sense.
an advantage of having the actual snare mic is that on the bottom, meaning where you're actually capturing the snares, is that you could get the top end of the snare without the hi hat in the way, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not remembering who said that. It was in the last 15 episodes or so.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense.
Maybe it might have been Caleb Parker who works with Wolfpack and Pomplamoose and Scary Pockets.
Oh, cool.
He does a lot of live funk recordings.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, anyways, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have any practices to stay fresh and creative? It could be routines. We all have days that we're not as inspired as others. So how do you kind of keep yourself ready to go in the studio?
Well, I don't meditate, but I do like to run. I'll go for a run in the morning or something like that, kind of get my head clear. I try to come to the studio every day and work. If there's a day where I'm not feeling it, or I get here and I'm uninspired and I feel like I can't get anything done, I'll go for a walk, or a good one to do is if you're deep in a mix or something and you kind of lost your mind, maybe just put on some different music, like different genre, different volume, different everything, and just
cleanse the palette.
Yeah, and then clean your studio. I love cleaning the space, organizing while I have some other music on that's not the music that I'm working on, and it usually gets me back into a headspace where I feel like I have perspective again. When that mix comes back up and I hit play, I'll be like, oh, there's some clarity, and then you keep working. But
yeah,
I also try to plan a day off a week or something like that. It doesn't always happen, but it's nice to be like, you know what, I'm gonna take Sunday, not gonna do any music on Sunday, and just fill up your day with something else, and just kind of refuel the tank. That's important to me too.
I'm big on the Sabbath, so
right.
That's my jam.
Yeah,
I've talked about it already ad nauseum, I think, on the podcast. But having a day off is huge. Love it. Yeah. Oh, so so you mentioned that you have a relationship with Justin Perkins. Is he your go-to mastering engineer? And also, do you ever send off for mixing as well?
Justin has been doing some stuff of mine recently, but he hasn't been my go-to for very long. He's kind of new to me. Like we've talked so much about Dwayne Lundy. He recommended Justin for a record that I had been working on. Dwayne was kind of co-producing and engineering some of the record for me, and we used Justin, and it went great. And he's just a very thorough, very professional guy, and does fantastic work. So I've been sending stuff to him. I think, definitely he did the song Thorns that we just listened to. More so, I've been using TJ Lipple. He's another guy. Have you heard of TJ Lipple?
No.
He's
I haven't.
He produced an album for my band a long time ago, and he's just a brilliant mixer and mastering engineer and musician. And so I send a lot to him as well. I've sent stuff recently to Greg Calby, and that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't normally send out for mix. I usually mix my own productions. There's occasionally where I feel like I lost perspective on it or something, and I'll just be like, someone else needs to help me here because I lost my way. But usually the mix is so intertwined with the production, and it's all happening all the time until the song is done. And then I feel like the song is done. I know a lot of people do that and still send out for mix, and the mixer doesn't do much. They just kind of, it's almost like a pre-mastering clean up, and I haven't.
The vocals a tiny bit honky. There's a bit of too much 4K in the guitar, like that kind of stuff.
I think that's cool. I would love, honestly, I think it would be really interesting to start sending out for mix more. I think I'm in this place where I just have people that I just love their work, and I'm like, you know what? I would love to send a track to that person and just see what they do with it. If budgets allow, then maybe I'll start doing that more. I think that's a fun idea. But up to now, I really have been. I try to stay in control of everything until it's done, just because. I think it's my nature to do that. But.
Yeah, it's all. I think we're all like that a little bit. Like we're all like, maybe some of it is ego, but we want to. We've had our hands all over this project. We want it to kind of sound how we think it needs to sound.
Are you that way too? Do you send out for mix, or do you do most of your stuff?
Yeah, I think I rarely send out for mixing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mostly mixing my stuff. I also like mixing, and I'm trying to do more mixing, as much mixing as I can.
Yeah.
I also like. I mean, I'm not at the point of giving up production. Like I want to do a bit of both, but I mixing is something that I'm always trying to strive to do more.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm trying to keep in house.
Cool.
Because I love it so much. But part of it is ego. I'm sure if I had less of an ego and was willing to let go of some stuff, I might be able to finish some projects that I haven't finished yet. So. Yeah, I don't know. There's a part. I think people that do what we do, we want to hang on to that level of control. And even when mastering comes back, sometimes I'm like, okay, wait, maybe they overdid it, right. And then I'll give another. Like I literally today, I was like, oh, he overdid on the mastering, and then I listened to another set of monitors, like, oh, he didn't actually overdo it, and it's hard to let go. But I think a lot of that is just ego, and like other people that do what we do are great, and I don't know. It's I'm still learning, I guess.
I'm still learning too. I think everyone's always still learning. Yeah. Do you master much of your own stuff? No.
I mean, I've like faux mastered a lot in the past, and I'm trying less and less to do that. Like one of my biggest takeaways of doing the podcast is like what a mastering engineer actually brings to the table, and for me, that's that objectivity of like, hey, I'm signing off on it. This is good. Like, did I get the low end right? Is the top end the right amount? Just those last things, just say like you did it or you didn't do it. And I don't have a Vari-Mu compressor or massive passive, so sometimes that adds a little bit of vibe. Although I think it's, I don't know. I'm not a mastering engineer. It definitely adds vibe sometimes, and I don't know if it's always necessary.
Yeah.
I've had mastering engineers overdo it.
Yeah.
Because usually, like when I send off a mix for master, it's pretty much where it is, and sometimes I'm leaving a little bit of room to extra, finagle some more saturation or compression or whatever in the master. But often it's pretty dialed in, so it's hard to know. It depends, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
That's my journey right now where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
So
I don't like mastering my own stuff. For that reason, I feel like it is really important, especially if you produced it and you mixed it and you've heard it a gajillion times, to have someone with really good ears be like, this is what I think will help this translate to the world, to the speakers of the world.
And their monitoring is probably way better than whatever we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Just a couple more questions, and I think we can wrap it. And you probably have a feeling that this question, if you've listened to this podcast, you know this question is coming. So looking back on your journey in production and mixing and everything you're doing, what would you tell your younger self today, knowing what you know now of maybe a mistake that you made in the past or something that you did right, like hey, Justin, keep at that, or Justin, maybe don't do that. What would be that one piece of advice that you'd give your former self?
I did know about this question because I have been listening to your podcast, which I love. I love your podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah,
wow.
I do. It's hard for me to say one thing because no regrets. Right, and also mistakes that you make can be valuable if you learn from them and if you do better the next round. That being said, I guess what I would say to myself is kind of the same thing that I still have to say to myself all the time, which is like trust your instincts. There's a reason you're in the room with this person working on this music. There's a reason. You can bring something to the table, even in those moments where we have a low self-esteem or imposter syndrome creeps in. it's important to just squash that, because it can really inhibit the creative process, and that's the worst thing that could happen. So yeah, just valuing what you bring to the table, having the confidence to bring it, and know your strengths, and just that I guess that's what I would say to myself then, and I have to say these things to myself still.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
My follow-up question to that is, do you have any tips for overcoming imposter syndrome? And, we all suffer, with that sometimes. So, do you have any advice? Like, like when I was playing bass on tour, I never got stage fright, but when you're playing in front of an audience that like really, like I went on a Russian tour with Alex Clare, and we're playing these clubs with like 600 people.
Right.
That it's not that many people, but it's like people really want to see this artist. And for the first time in like, I don't know, over a decade, I had stage fright.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have a shot of whiskey, and then I feel like this could be a big problem. Like you don't want to go down that path.
Right.
So, anyways, like I'm sure that's not a good way to go down that path. But maybe you have some tips for us.
Well, the imposter syndrome thing is it's a tricky one, because, listen, for instance, like me being on this podcast, I felt a little bit like, why am I getting asked to do this production podcast? Like I've been listening to your podcast. I love your podcast. I'm nervous to come and be on it, because I'm like, what do I have to say? And this is just the kind of, I think, the thinking that we're talking about, right? Whereas, of course,
you're clearly qualified to come on this show. But it's just me. But I'm just like a dude.
Until I got on here and we started chatting, and I now feel very comfortable. I'm sort of an introvert, and it is hard for me to like, the thought of coming on an interview and talking about myself makes me nervous. It's just, it is what it is. And there are sessions I've been in, and I'm like, why am I here surrounded by all these professional, like amazing people? Why am I in the room? And I think it goes back to kind of where I started with this conversation. When I was starting out producing and starting out recording with Dwayne, and like, he knew what he was doing. I didn't know what I was doing necessarily. I was just that was my school, and I was learning by doing, and I was talented enough, I think, to be in that room and bring something to the table. And so when you feel that imposter syndrome creep in, you just have to squash it, and you just have to show up and be professional and do your best that you can do. And then you're probably going to be okay. You're probably going to be fine. And you're probably going to grow from that situation. And you're going to feel that experience is just going to be a part of your growth, as a professional or as a musician or as a human being. So I don't know if that's advice or what I just said. I already forgot. But
just one foot in front of the other, right? Just like just keep at it. There's a reason. Like you're already there, so like you have to believe that there's a reason why you're there.
Yeah, and just do your best.
I love that.
Do your best and be kind to.
Being a good human is the basic 101 of success in music.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because music, again, it's relationship based. Profession, and you really just have to be a good person and work hard, and you're going to be okay.
Amen. Well, Justin, this was really, really, really fun. Great to meet you and schmooze with you. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did too.
Cool.
What's the best way to find you on the interwebs?
I am horrible at the self-promotion and the visibility. I do have a website under construction, so that's not a thing, but it will be. I guess you can find me on Instagram. Feel free to hit me up there if you have questions or anything. I don't use it that much, and I don't. Yeah, I'm not great at the social media stuff, but I do have Instagram, and it's at Justin W. Craig.
Awesome. Well, I'll put a link in the show notes. People can go find you there. And
cool.
Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Great to meet you, and maybe I'll see you in Brooklyn at some point.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the show, and I love what you're doing.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Secret Sonics. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Justin as much as I did. If you enjoyed this episode or any of our other episodes, I'd super appreciate it if you would go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It really helps the show. And if you could share this episode